Hi, this is William White, Music Director of Harmonia Orchestra and Chorus, here to tell you about the details of our 2026-2027 season. This season is called Great Powers. And when you think about power in regards to music, you probably think about the power of great music to move us and to stir our souls and to move our bodies. And that is definitely one aspect of the power of music that we will be looking at this season. But we will also be looking at the idea of geopolitical power and how some of the great empires of the world have expressed themselves through their music. We're starting off the season with Baroque Bangers Volume 1, and if ever there were a concert that did what it said on the tin, this is it. This is just going to be the danciest, boppiest, Baroque movements, not even like a whole concerto with its slow movement and its recitative or this or that or the other. This is just the cream. We're leaving the cookies on the plate. This is a concert with no intermission, and it's basically modeled after like a 1990s mix CD that they used to sell on TV when I was growing up. So that was the idea for this concert. The next concert is called Rule Britannia, and I did mention that we would be looking at some of the great geopolitical forces in world history, and of course the British Empire is certainly one of, if not the greatest of those. In this concert, we are looking at music from the heights of the British Empire, so we've got music by Charles Villiers Stanford, who was an Anglo-Irish composer in his Songs of the Fleet, where he sets poetry about the grandeur, both the highs and the lows, I would say, of being a British sailor. And we open the show with music by Dame Ethel Smythe, somebody who was part of the, I would say, even the inner circle of power in the British Empire, being from sort of an aristocratic background. But of course, as a woman, she didn't have access to all of the perks of citizenship or, exalted subjecthood, as the case may be. And yet she pursued not only her career as a musician, but also she was a very important member of the suffragist movement in Britain. That concert will finish with music by Sir Edward Elgar, his famous, world famous Enigma variations, which, by the way, pulls in some of the threads that we will have started during the first half of the concert, certainly with as regards to the British naval experience, because we've got one of those variations is about a friend of his who is on the water. And of course, he tells the story of all of his friends who were a very mixed bag of people that represented a lot of different strata of British society at the time. Speaking of great British music, the season would not be complete without our annual performances of Handel's Messiah. We hope that you will join us once again for the complete kit and caboodle, no cuts. Everything that Handel wrote is going to be heard once again. That is our commitment to you. And we do two performances of this, one on Saturday afternoon at First Free Methodist Church, and then Sunday afternoon at Bastyr University Chapel. After the new year, we've got a concert called Comrades. Now, this time we look at music from the Soviet Empire, from the USSR. And we've got three composers represented: Khachaturian, Shostakovich, and Prokofiev. Khachaturian is represented by his Waltz from the Masquerade Suite, one of the really stirring, rich Russian waltzes. It takes you sort of into the underbelly of the Russian soul, even though, of course, Khachaturian himself was Armenian. Then we have a performance of Shostakovich's Second Piano Concerto. Now, if you think of Shostakovich as being, a very political, very angsty composer, this is an example of something that's exactly the opposite. This was a piece that he wrote as a gift for his son to play at his conservatory graduation, and it's always been a favorite of audiences, and it featured in Fantasia 2000. And then we've got a performance of Sergei Prokofiev's Fifth Symphony. And what is this piece trying to say? Shostakovich is known for his rather complicated relationship with the Soviet forces. Prokofiev's could be argued to be even as complicated or more, because he left the Soviet Union and then returned. And he was expecting a bit of a hero's welcome, and he got something rather different. So we know a lot about Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony and what that was supposed to represent. But what was Prokofiev's Fifth Symphony all about? We'll be getting into that. Next up, we've got our choral program for the season. This is Dark choral. And we are going to go exactly in that direction. This concert is going to take place when the days are at their shortest. And in fact, this is a matinee, a great afternoon matinee at a new venue, St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, new to us, I should say. And we will explore some of the inkier elements of the choral repertoire with music by Rachmaninoff and Purcell. I will have a piece on this concert. We've got a new work by a young composer, Kaisho Barnhill. We've got music by Rautavaara, Messiaen, a lot of 20th century music, but also some early Baroque and even Renaissance music, and a little bit of Bach, just because no concert would be complete without it. Speaking of a little bit of Bach, we've got our next concert is a big dose of Bach, and who wouldn't like that? It's a performance of the St. John Passion. Now, we performed the St. Matthew Passion most recently 2 or 3 years ago, maybe it was 4 or 5 years ago now, and the St. John Passion is such an interesting contrast and a study in Bach's genius and in his ability to essentially tell the same story in a very different way. In the St. John Passion, he is making a taut musical form. Everything moves very quickly. There's not so much poetic commentary on the action as there is in the St. Matthew Passion. So the story is told briskly, and so it's got a real dramatic edge to it. The music is, of course, incredible. Some of the most incredible music that Bach ever wrote. Moving, stirring, beautiful, interior. So it goes right to the soul of your musical instincts and understanding. So when we talk about great powers in music, I mean, for one thing, we're talking about the power of the Roman Empire over a lowly itinerant preacher. And what happened in that story? Well, I think you know the rest, but we hope to see you for the St. John Passion. Our main stage series concludes with a concert called The Americans. And you might even look at this as being the American century, which is, of course, often a sobriquet for the 20th century. So we've got 3 composers represented here, writing all in about the same amount of, in the same time span chronologically. So I believe that the earliest work on the program is Wood Notes by William Grant Still from the 1930s. Also from the 1930s, we've got the Second Symphony by Randall Thompson. This is not one of your better known great American symphonies, but boy, is it a great American symphony. It is just suffused with rhythmic energy and vitality and beautiful singing melodies. It's everything that you would want from a great American piece. Much like, I should say, William Grant Still's Wood Notes is. I mean, these are 2 pieces that are very much in conversation with one another. And then for the choral extravaganza on this concert, we've got a performance of one of many people's favorites, Leonard Bernstein's Chichester Psalms, which is a piece that he, this great populist composer, he was always at war within himself about writing in the high modernist style of the middle of the 20th century, which is when he wrote this piece, in the early 1960s. And he just couldn't feel it within himself. So after struggling with various projects for a while, he threw them all out. And as he said, he wrote the most simple, tuneful piece of music that he possibly could. Now, having said that, there's a lot of spikiness in this piece too. It's an interesting bit of orchestration, strings and brass and percussion and harp and organ. And what a great way to end our season. So that's The Americans, our final look at one of the great powers and great power in music and the power of music. And look, you don't want to miss this season. So I would recommend very strongly going now and getting your subscriptions online. The subscriptions are with a new pricing model. They're the most deeply discounted price we have ever given on a subscription, 25% off the price of 7 individually priced tickets. So go now to our website, get your subscriptions, and we look forward to seeing you in October.